या दोस्तों नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल। मैं दानिश महाजन एक बार फिर से प्रोग्राम लेकर हाजिर हूं, बदलता दौर। और आज का जो बदलता दौर है ये बहुत ही खास है और आज एक क्रिटिकल और इम्पोर्टेंट इशू पर एज यूजुअल आई यूज्ड टू टॉक एंड आई विल टॉक विद माय पैनल। और आज का जो पैनल है वो भी बहुत वर्दी पैनल है एंड विल डिस्कस अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स व्हिच यू आर लुकिंग फॉर और हमें कवर करना चाहिए। यू ऑलवेज हैड सजेशंस विद रिगार्ड टू दिस शो एंड आज हमारे साथ जो पैनल है वो ओवरसीज पैनल है और एक खास प्रोजेक्ट को ये लोग रन कर रहे हैं एंड विल फिगर आउट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स आर बीइंग फेस्ड बाय दिस पीपल एंड पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटी अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड। तो आज हम इनसे बात करेंगे और आपके जो क्वेश्चंस मेरे पास हैं, जो क्वेरीज मेरे पास हैं, एंड आई विल आल्सो पॉइंट आउट दोज क्वेरीज एंड विल ट्राई टू गेट द फीडबैक फ्रॉम आवर पैनलिस्ट। So let me introduce the panel today. So people are joining me from the Starfish project, and you might be aware with the 60-minute impact. That project is also run under the Starfish project. So joining me, Upasna ma'am from Indore. She is Chief Inspirational Officer of Starfish project. Upasna ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish. Thank you.
Joining me, CEO of Starfish project and a very talented female from Canada, Miss Nasreen. Nasreen ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish sir.
And joining me, Alina ma'am from Malaysia. She is leading Starfish project in Malaysia. Alina ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish.
And Amanda ma'am is joining me from Australia. She is a John Maxwell trainer and coach in Starfish project. Amanda ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish.
So we'll discuss problems and challenges faced by the visually impaired females or the disabled females, and feel free to keep your viewpoint. If I skip any question you think it is important and we should express our views over that question. So let us start with Nasreen ma'am. Nasreen ma'am, in Canada, what do you find, what is the condition of the visually impaired females with regard to accessibility?
Yes, Danish sir. Here in Canada, females with accessibility, the unemployment rate in Canada is rather high in the disabled community, and then being a female, it's a little bit higher because females tend to get demotivated and kind of stay out of the work sector, and then some of them do not know what some of their accessibility rights are here until they're either put in a situation where they have to learn right away how to adapt, or sometimes if they're on the job, if they get a job, sometimes it's creating awareness or getting small gains before they actually make leaps and bounds. So for women here, it is a bit difficult. There is a high range of unemployment here in the disabled community for women, and like I said, women tend to get a little discouraged. They seem to just, sort of stay indoors and say, what's the point, or raise kids. That's another challenging viewpoint, Danish sir.
Okay, so opening comments from Alina ma'am. What is your take on it?
Well, here in Malaysia, yes, I agree with Nasreen. It's more or less the same in Canada, whereas it's quite difficult, especially for the women. And in terms of, but it depends as well. Sometimes those who are born blind, they would train, and once they learn the Braille, there'll be a possibility of getting job, but then but not much of a percentage, because each and every company, they're only allowed to take, not sure, around more or less like 10% or 7% of the workers, and where else those who are in the middle where are just adult blind, and once they stop working, it's hard for them to find a job. And in terms of once, and as well as once they can't find a job, so they feel demotivated. So in terms of surrounding the community, they feel that this, especially for the women, they feel that they are not really know what else to do. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Danish.
Okay. So, Amanda, ma'am, what is your opening comments?
Disability aside, I think women in Australia face the same issues as women in other Western countries, really, as far as employment goes. I don't think women with disabilities face any special challenges because they're women, any different from any other challenges that able-bodied women face. But yeah, apart from that, I would agree with what the others have said.
Okay. Upasna, ma'am.
Yes, apart from unemployment, I feel in a country like India where principles are slightly different, the biggest problem for a woman with a disability is fighting for her own identity. Culture in India, as it is very biased when it comes to giving an identity to the gender. It is a male-dominating society, and I think women already have a lot of work cut out where it comes to fighting for their rights. But yes, a woman with a disability faces a tougher challenge because she may be accepted at one point of time in society, but I feel she has a really tough time convincing her family that she is as capable as her abled counterparts, her abled peers. That is the most difficult part. I think in India, the biggest challenge, employment comes later, but first I think it's finding acceptance at home among family members and trying to convince them that wanting to be self-dependent is not such a big curse after all. I think this is the biggest problem in India.
I agree. This is a broader point you have brought into the discussion in the beginning of your remarks. तो अभी तक लिसनर्स जो हमारे पैनलिस्ट ने बताया है, अभी जो फॉरेन में हमें प्रॉब्लम समझ आ रही है वो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है. हम आगे भी बात करेंगे, लेकिन उपासना मैम का यहाँ पे ये कहना है कि जो फीमेल्स हैं इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम्स थोड़ी सी मुख्तलिफ हैं. इनका ये भी कहना है कि कहीं ना कहीं जो फीमेल विद डिसेबिलिटी हैं वो जेंडर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की भी विक्टिम रहती हैं. Okay, so Naseem ma'am, I want to know, the question has been raised by Upasna ma'am. Do you think in Canada there is because in India we've often found there is a patriotic mindset of the community, and as she said, people are being discriminated on the ground of gender. So do you think kind of problems are being faced in Canada as well?
I don't think as much as in comparison to India, because here there is more equality given to men and women compared to India. If I were to compare it to India, again, a man and a woman here in Canada will never be equal. There will always be a degree of 10%, I believe, difference. But there is more acceptance for the women here. There's more opportunity for the women here.
Okay, so another question to you, Nasreen ma'am. What about transport accessibility? Do you think that transport accessibility is the perfect way for the person with disability in Canada? One can walk in night, one can walk in morning, and they can independently go around?
Yes, in many ways, yes. Mobility and transportation in Canada through our government-run programs or blind schools or these sort of advocacy disability agencies is taught. It is important here, and therefore it is, I think, a lot easier to get around once you have been taught, trained to use your mobility, use your cane, access, transportation vehicles like taxis, rely on friends and family. So getting around is not the challenge. The challenge here is the individual embracing, learning how to get around and use the tools that we have here in Canada. That could be the biggest hurdle. It could be self-indulgence or lack of confidence to be able to do that. But the tools are abundant here.
Okay, that's perfectly all right. Ji, Alina ma'am, same questions for you.
Right. Here in Malaysia, the men and the women are equivalent the same. They were allowed to go to work. They were allowed. There's no discrimination in terms of women and men here. It's the same. And as for the transportation, it's I wouldn't say it's very easy, but it's quite. They're able to go around easily, but especially in the big cities like Kuala Lumpur.
So there are mobility and accessibility issues in Malaysia.
Yes, there is, but especially it's only in big cities like Kuala Lumpur, Penang. Those are the main cities they will have. But in smaller cities, not really. They have especially in the shopping mall. But if it's on the road, the public road, they won't be. Yeah, they won't be the track for the blind. But only most of the time will be. They will be only, between schools. But if you go around the cities from one place to another place, it's really hard to find. So most of the time we'll be using the apps, like the Blind Square. So we'll use that apps to be much easier for us to find the places.
Oh, Alina ma'am, another question to you is, what is the attitude of the parents? Do they send their daughters alone? Okay, you go, you be self-independent, or they do extra, care of females?
For females, I would say they will do extra. Sometimes they won't allow, especially the girls, to go out alone. Most of the time, they will accompany them to go around. But for the guys, it'll be much easier. But for the women, it's really hard because, people can take advantage as in, can just steal your bags. So most of the time, if you want to go anywhere, you will be accompanied. Unless, but in the big cities, let's say in Kuala Lumpur, where there's a lot of people around, and we are used to it, to the roads. And if you are, let's say, you're going to the same road, going to the work, I think that will be okay. But then, sometimes because here, let's say from in front of my house. But you have
the same issues which Indians are facing. So
yes,
the same mindset is there as well, what I'm able to figure out. Okay, Amanda ma'am, do you have the different experience or do you have the same views as Alina ma'am has?
As far as discrimination between men and women, my experience is much the same as Nazrine's in Canada. But from a mobility perspective, I think Australia actually has the best accessibility in the world. I really do, because our training is not limited. In some countries, you are limited. You can only have a certain number of hours of training if you are learning to get to school or work. But in Australia, you can have training to, learn to get to the local shop or to your friend's house or, whatever it is. Our cities are very well laid out. We've got tactile tiles at a lot of the crossings. And in the railway stations, there's more and more talking lifts being introduced. There's accessible buses where the ramps can lower down so people in wheelchairs can get on the buses. In Canberra, we've just had talking GPS introduced into the buses so you can actually hear where you're going. I think the training and accessibility in Australia is really better than many larger places in the world.
Upasana ma'am, first you go ahead, then I'll explain for the listeners.
Well, if it comes to talking of accessibility in India, like there's a very famous saying that in India you have to find roads among potholes. In the same way, you have to find accessibility among inaccessibility. There is so much inaccessibility here. It's my personal experience. You go to offices, you go to banks, you go to any possible institution, it will be highly inaccessible. Very difficult for people with disabilities to maneuver, to go around, to gain information. I think this is a very, very major problem in our country.
तो जी लिसनर्स, आपने सुना सभी को, जब हम एक्सेसिबल, आई एम हैविंग इट वेरी कैजुअल डिस्कशन लिसनर्स आपके लिए, ताकि हम कंपेयर कर सके कौन सी प्रॉब्लम्स कहाँ पे कैसी हैं और हमें कैसे टैकल करना है। नसरीन मैम ने बताया कि प्रॉब्लम्स जो माइंडसेट को लेके, हालांकि एक्सेसिबिलिटी इश्यूज मलेशिया को अगर हम छोड़ें तो कनाडा और ऑस्ट्रेलिया में इंडिया के कंपैरेटिवली मच बेटर है, वहां पर एक्सेसिबिलिटी इश्यूज इतने नहीं आते हैं। हालांकि फीमेल्स की कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, वो उन्होंने बताया। पेट्रियोटिक माइंडसेट जो लोगों को समझाना, जो फैमिली को समझाना, यूं कहूं वहां भी है, उन पर भी हम बात करेंगे कि वहां कितना मुश्किल होता है समझाना। और जो वहां पर मेन प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, एम्प्लॉयमेंट की भी हम बात करेंगे, वो क्यों है। और इसके अलावा जो सेक्सुअल अब्यूज के केसेस डे बाय डे इंक्रीज हो रहे हैं, उन पर भी हम जानने की कोशिश करेंगे कि मुख्तलिफ कंट्रीज में क्या हो रहा है और इस पे क्या डेवलपमेंट हो रही है। Nasreen ma'am, quick point I want from you. How difficult it is in Canada to teach people with regard to disability, to aware them? Does the people believe the same way that person with disability has extraordinary skills or the sixth sense, or they are equal to gods and like that?
Well, people with disabilities here are not equal to God. That's one thing. And sixth sense, that depends on the individual, I would say. Mainstream people, it depends on who you kind of talk to and bump into. For the most part, it's not that negative. People are accepting, especially in large cities where there's more, awareness to disabilities, where there's more sort of ergonomic spaces designed to adapt and accommodate disabilities. So, for example, like in Toronto, we have a lot of our major intersections have a lot of the lights have sound. So when the light changes green, it makes a certain sound. When the light changes red, it makes a certain sound. There's also, tactile attraction, so that you kind of know where you're going. There's a lot more aids and help. If you're, and people generally, if they see you struggling as a disabled person, whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're navigating with a cane, they tend to help you.
Okay, Alina ma'am.
The people here, they are quite generous. If they see you with your cane, they'll be helping you to cross the roads, and even if if they see you since you are lost, they might ask you where do you want to go. But I think I would say it depends on the people. And let's say for me, if I go to the shop, some people, when I bump in and I said, can you help me with something? They didn't know that I can't see. And I said that, can you do and help me with this? And they're just okay. But some of them, they don't know what to do. They just run away. But most of the people, I would say a bigger percentage, they are very helpful and they are aware of people with disabilities.
So you're saying it's not bad in Malaysia?
No, it's not bad. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it's just a small percentage. Maybe people are just they just don't have any idea on how to handle people with disabilities.
Okay, so in Malaysia, do you people organize awareness programs throughout the countries? There are NGOs who are launching some programs to aware people?
Yes, we do have. And where we have, let's say in a program, at one point they have a program in the shopping mall, and they'll ask people to, this is how it feels when you are blind. So they even ask the public who want to volunteer to walk with a cane, so that at least they know how does it feel when you can't see, and how does it feel when you want to walk around with a cane. It's quite difficult. So this is one of their ways for them to feel how difficult it is sometimes, especially when you're not familiar with the places. So at least it will make them feel okay. In that case, if they see any of the people needs help, so they should go and help them. They do have this kind of programs all around the places.
Amanda, ma'am.
Okay, I've found people generally to be quite generous. I have had there seems to be a common misconception that people, particularly who are blind, that their senses well, I've had a lot of people ask me, they say, oh, because you're blind, does that mean that, your hearing and your sense of smell and your other senses, they must be much better than everybody else's? And it's like, well, no, they're no better. I just use them more efficiently. So that seems to be a common misconception among people. But in the awareness program area, we've actually just launched a program. The Guide Dogs Association has just launched a program at the moment saying, respect my uniform, which is all about if you see a guide dog with a harness on, you don't touch it. So, or you don't distract it because it has a job to do. So I've just recently had the privilege of speaking on local radio about people not distracting guide dogs while they're working. So we definitely have a very high awareness.
So guide dogs are there in Canada and Australia. Do you have a guide dog, Alina ma'am, in Malaysia?
So far, no. Here, I think they don't allow people to have guide dogs yet.
We have this problem.
I've read of one man in Malaysia who had a guide dog. He was the first man in Malaysia to have a guide dog. This was last year, and I think he was having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, because most of the shop. Most of the shop actually they won't allow that. Yeah.
Okay, they won't allow it in most of the shops. So that's another problem when you go to have something in a shop, so you cannot leave your dog as outdoor.
Yeah, and public transport as well.
ये उपासना मैम, attitude of the people in India, so we have some problems, और मैं listeners को यहाँ पे बिल्कुल clear कर देता हूँ कि इस शो का मकसद किसी भी कंट्री को डिमीन करना नहीं है, किसी भी कंट्री से हमारा सिर्फ एक ही मकसद है ताकि हम कंपैरेटिव स्टडी कर सकें और जो अच्छी चीजें हमें फॉरेन से मिल रही हैं हम उन्हें अडॉप्ट करें, उन आइडियाज को, जो बैरियर हम फेस कर रहे हैं उसको ब्रेक कर सकें और जो हमारी कंट्री में अच्छा हो रहा है ये बाकी लोग देख सकें और उन्हें अडॉप्ट कर सकें. जी उपासना मैम.
The best part now in India is that these days I have noticed a change in the attitude of people. It is becoming better from what it was earlier. But then again, it depends on individual to individual. Somebody may understand disability, somebody may not understand disability. Sometimes I have been helped by people who don't even know me, and sometimes I have been ignored by even people who I'm very familiar with, or probably peers at my college. So again, it depends on individual. I think the youth have a major role to play here, and the children. So when they understand, they will make the society aware. So that has started to happen in India, but it has nothing to do with NGOs, it has nothing to do with the government. It is again everything to do with the individual perception of the youth and the children. If they understand, I think everything will go fine.
Nasin ma'am, now the major issue nowadays we are noticing, reading out and listening in a media is sexual harassment with person with disability. Whether it is in the special schools or it is the fear that which stops females to move freely in the roads and to be self-dependent. So how big this problem is, and what are the steps being taken by the government of Canada or the NGOs to ensure the safety of the females?
Danish sir, this problem in Canada, it's not so great, which is excellent. It's minimal because there's a lot of training and teaching going on at the school level as soon as in the informative years. So when a child is blind from birth, they're put into the school system, into these special schools, and they're taught, different skills, and they're educated on that type of training. And there's an incident here or there in the news, but they're not as readily as you would find experiences in many countries. But I think education is the biggest thing here. At early ages, people with disabilities are taught how to, be assertive, how to, protect themselves, and sort of know what the signs are of danger. Sexual harassment for the disabled, although it happens, I don't think it's as readily. Maybe 15% here is about what I would say the value of it because of the education that is taught to the disabled person, as well as the society is sensitive to this factor as well too. I think plays a big part.
So you are saying that self-defense training has been given to the students, so they know how to tackle the situation. The rate is very low as compared to other countries. But God forbid, if there is an incident like that, then what are the options do you have? Is government friendly to disabled, or do you have a special cell of the females which are going to note down these complaints and to work out on it?
No, the government is very favorable. The law is very favorable, so the law will protect the disabled person, if they're in the right, and the law will protect, and the government will protect. There's agencies to help them get through that. Crisis centers, caring centers, community social workers to help them get through those traumatic times. There are target markers in place for that situation if a situation like that were to arise. Like I said, it's not so much readily on the news. I hear more about senior abuse and senior mugging and that sort of stuff these days than I do about people with disabilities being sexually harassed. Which I guess in the long term is a good thing, I suppose.
Okay. So short answer, I want to ask you, and short answer I need from you. So do you think the people with disability are completely aware of the law of the country?
Absolutely. If they're not 100% aware, then they definitely are about 75% aware of the law here, definitely.
That's awesome. Okay, Alina ma'am.
Yes. Here in Malaysia, it's more or less like Canada. The rate is very, very low, where in the papers, most of the time you will see people mugging, like, let's say, seniors and other people. But for disabilities, it's very, very, it's less. It's I don't know, it's hardly you can find in the papers. But then we do have here in Malaysia, they do have the apps called Save Me 911, and they create apps especially for the blind. So what you do is you just fill in all your particular details, your address, and your card. There's a disability card where you can just key in there, and as well as if anything happens, we just press the button and it will go straight to the 911, and they actually know where the location is. So they identify you where you are, they'll come and save you.
That's amazing, and I think हमारी NGO वालों को या government को भी इस program को सुनना चाहिए, and they must adopt the policy you are telling. So as per now, we don't have any options. We have a lot of laws that we can knock the door of the judiciary, but still this kind of helpline is required, especially in a country like India. Okay, Amanda ma'am.
The experience in Australia is very similar to Canada in that there's much higher incidence of senior abuse than there is of disabled abuse. I think I've heard possibly 2 or 3 incidences over my lifetime in the news. I mean, there may be more than that, but it's definitely more senior abuse than disabled abuse. Yeah.
The situation is the same.
Yeah.
So what are the steps being taken by the government if, God forbid, if there is an incident, as Alina ma'am said, they can call to a particular number and they will get the help. So do you have the same facility like that?
No, we don't. They would call 000, which is our emergency number, like any other person. No, they wouldn't have any. They would have exactly the same services and facilities and social work and support that a non-disabled person would have, which is quite substantial.
Well, the whole world is aware of the situation in India regarding issues with women, whether they are disabled or not disabled, in your special context. But here I would like to add that merely making laws is not going to help. Again, what we need is to change the thinking of people. And as far as women with disability are concerned, I think they have already a lot of problems, and their families, they do not make them aware of this problem. This is a taboo in India. Parents do not educate their daughters about it, and they're not aware. So we do need a lot to do in India. As far as India is concerned, we're a long way behind.
But do you think the improvement is taking place in India as well? There is a revolution with regard to the study of the females.
There is, but it's very slow as compared to the Western world. It's very slow.
Okay, so before I go to Naseem ma'am, a quick comment from Alina ma'am and Amanda ma'am. So Alina ma'am, do you also have the self-defense programs for the females so they can protect themselves?
No.
If there is any violence? Don't have, okay?
So far, no.
Okay. Amanda ma'am?
No, not really. No, they're run by community organisations. Yeah.
Community organization. Okay. So biggest problem as per now in the Western world or in countries like Malaysia and other is the employment issue. Okay, let's talk for a while on this issue. Then we'll move forward. Nasreen ma'am, what are the reasons? I find this is the area which India has improved drastically as compared to other countries. Here employment is high. Though for some people sometimes they are unfortunate to grab it, but still 3% reservation is there, special recruitment drive is there, private company has also started hiring. What I found in Western world is countries like Canada, what I found is their allowances are very high. So people want, if they are getting allowances, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So people think the allowances are high, they can meet their daily needs, and that's why they don't really, look for the jobs. How do you see it?
Yes, Danish sir. Well, yes, there are allowances here set by the government. I will sort of say that they're not very high. I mean, they're really not. I mean, you're living in poverty. You are below the 20,000 and even sometimes 15,000 a year bracket, which is poverty level. And also it depends upon how many kids. It depends on different criteria. So how many dependents you have, if you have a spouse or not. If you're a single mom, you get this quota with one dependent. If you're a single mom with these, 2, 3 kids, you get this. If you are, a family of 2, you get this. So it all depends on these guidelines of dependent and spouse and these kind of criteria. And so therefore sometimes they do give the allowances, and with the allowances comes a lot of strict maintenance that they expect from the recipient. So there is no, allowance for allowance for property, or sometimes depending on your situation, owning a car. They have very strict guidelines. Having allowances has its perks, I will say, but it also has its negative, where it sometimes can take and strip away your dignity, because you are bound to their rules and regulations. So owning a bank account, if you're a single mom with one dependent, you can only have, $5,000 to $500. So allowances are there, yes, to help you eat, keep a roof over your head. But at the end of the day, I mean, it does define, the parameters are very narrow.
So, are you satisfied the employment you are getting in Canada and?
So, because of these allowances, sometimes people look at what they're getting from the allowance, and then they look at what they're allowed to have above the allowance quota, depending upon their situation. So, single mom versus families, and therefore they decide, is getting a job important enough that I will have to give up, this much. So they budget, and sometimes they figure, hey, you know what, I'm better off staying on allowance because I'm more comfortable this way. I'm in the poverty level, yes, but I'm more comfortable. And then sometimes people have not the skills, or sometimes there's the type of jobs available for people with disabilities are not of the higher caliber. They're not equality or inclusion jobs. So the people that I know that are profitable in their jobs are people in the IT sector who have grown up, or later in life grown up and gone to blind schools and been educated, or later in life they've been able to somehow maintain their job and adapt with assistive technology. And I'm hoping that answers your question, Danish sir.
Do you have reservation in a government policy? Do you have reservation in employment by the government? For example, in India, we have 3% reservation in the job.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's about 7%. They're trying to now more adopt people into employers, make them more aware, and tell them to, have fill up the 7% rule here as well to diversify some staff. But again, it's a slow-mo. Some organizations will and some won't. So they're making their way around very slowly.
जी, अगर मुझे एक लाइन में ये बात को रखना है तो आई विल जस्ट से दैट कहानी घर घर की. सो हर जगह यही चल रहा है. अलीना मैम.
Here disabled people, they are not given allowance because from what I can see, those who are not working so far, most of the people that I know, they don't have any allowance given. But then in that case, they need to find a job. So those people, what they do, most of them, they will start doing the training, getting their skills. Let's say, for example, most of them, they will do the massage training. So this is how they're going to try to get a job and get the money. In terms of employment, well, I can say most of the government sectors, they will take the disabled people to work. And it depends, but I can see from what I can see is most of them, they will place in the customer service area or the reception area where they allow the disabled to work. And this is the
don't you have reservation policy, 3% or 7%?
The one who always take is only the government. The government department, they always take the policy where 17%. They need to take 17% of disabled people. I cannot see any of the. It depends on the company actually. If they want to take disabled people, they will take. But in government, they will take around 17%.
Yeah, 17% is very high. But still, you are saying people are unemployed?
Yes, people are unemployed because the government, it is in, let's say, in one whole building, which is a very big. But what they do, they will say 17%. But I can see in the place
only on paper.
Have around 3. Maybe.
Okay, 17%. Yeah, again, kahani ghar ghar ki, popular dialogue of the day. Okay, Amanda ma'am, I found this in Australia and the USA. The situation is worse with regard to employment of the disabled. They really don't want to work. They just want to rely on allowances, and employment is very low in Australia. Do you go by me, or do you have different perception?
The situation is very similar to that in Canada. The only thing that is different is that blind people are treated differently to people with other disabilities in that the allowances that they get are not asset tested. So you can earn basically anything. Doesn't matter how much you earn, you will still get paid the allowance if you're blind. But if you have any other disabilities, the situation is exactly the same as Nazreen described.
Okay. Upasna ma'am.
The employment situation for people with disability in India is very grim. When I'm talking in terms of the higher level of education, and the higher the experience, the higher the education, the more difficult it is for the people with disability to find jobs. I have noticed this everywhere, and at the entry level, at the intern level, the companies will offer jobs, but when the level increases, they are very apprehensive. They do not employ people with disability.
They are not giving promotion in the job. First they hire and they don't give promotion. Is this you are saying?
It's about incentive. There is no incentive. There is no promotion. And I have even heard people saying that rather than employing you on such high salary, I would rather have 4 other people working with me without any disability who I can pay. I can keep 4 people with the salary that I have to pay you. So that is what I heard personally. So as far as the disability employment in India, again, the situation is very, very dismal.
Lekin Upasna ma'am, in banking you are regularly getting jobs. nowadays disabled recruitment. Now companies are offering a lot of jobs. So
Yes,
still you
but
think the situation is grim?
Yes, I do, because again it depends upon the level of education. I have noticed that on the entry level, they are very open to jobs, but when it comes to sharing, for example, take a chartered accountant firm. When it comes to promoting a person with a disability on a higher level, on a partner level, on a management level, people do not do it, just because of the fact that the person has a disability. Even in schools, I have noticed even in schools, teachers are not offered senior classes just because they are disabled. I went through this experience myself. And the reason the principal gives me for not giving me a higher class is because I have a disability. I cannot, if there is invigilation duty, I cannot figure out 40, 50 children sitting in a class. I am not very quick with analyzing and scrutinizing answer sheets, though I was quicker than my other teachers, but I was not given the opportunity. They just have to text that you have a disability. So the problem is there.
Yeah, there is harassment. Yeah, there is harassment for person with disability.
There is, and there's a lot of it.
और listeners, मैं आपको बता दूं, if you want to be skillful, you want to have a training, so Starfish is providing that training. You have to pay a very little amount, and you don't have to go anywhere. By the help of Skype or phone, you can join that training. Your friends can join the training. At the end of the programs, we'll give you the email address to contact if you want to learn some programs from Starfish, and I will come with the founder of Starfish, and we'll figure out what kind of programs they launch and how we can avail and how we can be benefited out of that. So Starfish has working internationally to improve the skills of the person with disability, so you can be associated with them. I will let you know how and when at the end of the program. Okay, so one question I am always been told by the listeners, go and ask this, and Nasreen ma'am, let us start with you. The matrimonial issues. People are very keen to know about the matrimonial issues. So, do you face a kind of certain problems in the matrimonial? There is the issue that blind will not get married to blind will look for the partial, and partial will look for the sighted, and sighted will never want to get married to a blind or disabled. You have the kind of problems there?
It's a 50-50 split, I would say. Generally, this our whole sort of attitude here is based upon finding your own partner, based upon love, based upon acceptance. So it's generally speaking, there is no problem with that. You can go and find whomever you wish to, want to marry. It's all about likeness, about fondness of the heart, opposites attracting. Like I said, it's generally opposites attracting, sort of love, finding the right partner is general consensus, but if you culturally divide it, then I would really have to point fingers at the South Asian community again to have that 50-50 split and the narrow mind and the ignorance in some households and some families where other people don't really care as far as that goes. So it's a little bit more lenient and a little bit more, I would say, liberal, Danish sir, but again, it depends upon the families.
Okay. Alina ma'am.
Here in Malaysia, there is no issue if you want to get married, as long as you like each other, whether disabled or not disabled. Even between, I have a few friends who is in bad vision. They are married to sighted people. What will come an issue is a matter of whether the family can accept them or not. So as far as I can see, if their family accept them is what they are and how the partner is, everything is fine.
Amanda ma'am.
Yes, it depends on whether they like each other. I don't think there's really any particular issues. No.
So there is no community problem, there is no problem. It depends upon how do you love or how do you like.
Pretty much, I think so. I mean, as with Nasreen, there could be the differences in cultural subgroups within Australia. In fact, I'd say they would be fairly similar to what Nazreen described, but no particular issues within the Australian culture, no.
Okay. Upasana, ma'am.
India, with its diversity, again, the situation differs from case to case. There are people who have no bar, who have no problems, but there are people who are very, very dogmatic about it too. So again, it differs upon the situation. It differs. It depends upon the culture, about the thinking, about the principles, about the values of a family, of a community in particular. There is no standard rule. There are people who will be very comfortable marrying a person with a disability, and in fact, in the disabled group, I feel there are certain people with disability who would not want to marry another person with disability. With increasing education and employment and more self-dependence, the people without disability, I think there is a more positive change in their attitude as compared to people with disability. This is what I find in India. We have to look for transformation first among ourselves and then go for people who are not disabled. Because if we don't understand each other, how can we expect other people to do that?
Okay, so Naseem, ma'am, now the role of the media and the NGOs, are you satisfied the way NGOs and media working with regard to issues of blind or disabled in Canada?
For the pretty most part, that they seem to be relatively good. As soon as there is a problem here, the disabled community, will rally. They'll make noise. The media will come out, hype it, and the corporates will take a look at it and try, and the government will take a look at it and try to adjust laws to accommodate or to facilitate the best they can, which within reason. I mean, they will not do anything without reason, but within the reason parameters, they will make adjustments if necessary, pass laws if need be, and that sort of thing. So yes, to answer the question, yes, it's pretty favorable.
Media is raising your issues.
They will. As soon as the disabled rally, the media is there, being sensitive to their needs, showing their, broadcasting their needs nationwide, pointing it out in the papers, and they will not stop until, whatever lead on next rally is, they're always there. So they follow the story to the end, to the solution point, and help sensitize other people who are not disabled to help the disabled with their causes as well too, and informs and educates the other demographic group who are non-disabled about what the disabled are going through, facing, feeling, the emotions for whatever cause that they're fighting for as well. So they play hand in hand and they support.
Okay, so NGOs and media are very favorable to the needs, and when they raise the issue whenever it is required, they point out the certain problems faced by the disabled community. That's indeed wonderful.
Yeah,
Alina, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, here the media is actually quite supportive towards the disabilities. Whenever, let's say, it happens to you or whoever, or you have a neighbors facing a problem, you can actually write to the papers and you can raise up the issue. They actually come and help. They even look up and trying to find out what is the solution for them. Even the companies, the corporate, they will try to help them as well. So once the thing is on the papers or on the web, if you viral it around, and if people know the community, they will help you. They will help the disabilities.
Amanda, ma'am.
I'd say the same thing. I think the media and NGOs are very supportive of people with disabilities. And like Alina and Nazreen, if issues are raised, they're dealt with and they're followed and they're supported and, followed through.
Upasana, ma'am.
In India, NGOs and media do play an active role in broadcasting the issue, but the trouble is that the focus is all on broadcasting the issue, and it is done with such ferocity that ultimately the true cause is lost. So it's all about who broadcasted what, and when and why, the ultimate cause is lost. So I feel here we need to actually start thinking of solutions and broadcasting them rather than broadcasting the problem and criticizing from uphill to downdale. I think we need to be constructive more with analyzing the situation and finding solutions. Once that is done, I think India will definitely improve, and that improvement has started. But again, it is very, very slow and it needs to spread. Finding a solution to the problem should be the focus, not the problem itself. That's what I feel.
Print media has got a little vibrant, but electronic media seems completely ignorant as per now. Even we have rallies, big rallies, but we found very rare that electronic media is coming and covering that issues and raising the issue. Okay, so I am in the last round of this discussion. It is a wonderful discussion. I have learned a lot of things, and my listeners might have learned a lot of things as well. So, Nasreen ma'am, I want to know your closing comment. Still, what do you think? What is the biggest problem you have for females in Canada, and what are the solutions do you have to suggest them?
I think the biggest problem will still be the high level of unemployment because, with the allowances that are given, and that's a comfort zone, a safety net, sometimes people don't go out of that comfort zone, explore new options, and integrate into the job market of today. I think that is the hugest thing. Alongside with that is mobility, transportation. It becomes a whole package for the individual to cope with that, especially if it's something they've never done before. They've never charted that course of unemployment. Then they have all these facets to consider. How will I get there? Will there be reasonable accommodations? Sometimes you don't get high-level skilled jobs. Sometimes, employers on the other side are not equipped, in some cases, to handle people with disabilities. Or if they are, they get one through an agency. They have to quickly modify, train, and sometimes they find that to be difficult. So it's a case by case, I would really say. But again, I would really say that it's the unemployment level that is really high, and that should be sort of bridged, I think, by having more opportunity, more education, bringing the employers closer to the disabled community. I think there's a huge gap. I think that there's a big abyss between where is the disabled community and the employers. So I think there needs to be some conversations there. It's not until some third-party agency says, hey, I've got, Miss X here who's got a disability and she has these administrative skills. Do you have a position, in your organization? Sometimes the employers become aware, okay, there is a person out there. Oh, sure, we'll onboard them. So sometimes there's a bit of a gap like that as well, too. But that's just the way it is. To have the good jobs, the great careers. I guess one of the main pain points is that perhaps being, not disabled is where that's at. But being disabled, you got to work at it, climb that ladder, find those opportunities, and they're seldom there. That's the other thing.
Exactly.
I hope that sheds light there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alina ma'am, your closing comment with the same question.
Right. Here the problem is, I can say it's the unemployment as well, since we are not given allowance. At the same time, when you as a disabled people, you like to find a job, what they'll give you is most of the time as being a reception or customer service area, and hardly you can find a job whereas in the admin area, even though you have I'm not sure, but even though you have a degree or whatsoever, once they see you as a disabled people in the resumes, they have the perception of perhaps it's really hard for them to hire disabled people, and it's rarely, or maybe perhaps you one or two people you can see in the higher level in organization where you can see disabled people only in the area of perhaps in a blind organization or any disabled organization. You might see them in a higher level, but in terms of a corporate world, you won't see any of disabled people. So most probably, most of them are employed maybe only the level of administration or reception or customer service. And but so far the employment here is still a big issue in Malaysia for disabled people.
Amanda, ma'am.
I would agree that unemployment is the biggest problem. I look at it at a slightly different angle. I think once disabled people have jobs, it's much easier for them to move between jobs, which was certainly my experience. But getting that first job out of school or out of uni, I think, is the hardest thing, because disabled people to employers are an unknown quantity, and it's not as easy for disabled people to get jobs during school or after school jobs, after university jobs, because those, delivering pizzas or working at McDonald's or, those sorts of jobs are not as easy for a disabled person to do. So they don't have that proven level of work experience. And I think that's one thing which adds to the difficulties, is getting their first job. I got my first job by word of mouth, because I knew someone, he knew someone who was leaving their job, and they recommended me. I had to write 147 job applications, and that was with 2 degrees, to get my first job. And I only got it via word of mouth, because 146 of those 147 people sort of obviously saw me as an unknown quantity, even though I was a qualified lawyer, because I'd had no real work experience. And so I think that's one of that's my take on the employment issue.
Upasna, ma'am.
When we are talking of issues for women with disabilities, I think in India we should not forget that a major chunk of population lives in the rural areas. Though in the urban areas the scenario is changing, but in the rural areas the situation is very, very grim. Employment is not even a thought there. There, women with disabilities are struggling for their identity, for surviving, for their existence, and they do not even have the basic amenities, the basic facilities, the basic recognition which they should have as a woman. So again, in India's perspective, the situation is different, because when you talk of problems in rural India, that is a totally unexplored part where I think everybody needs to focus. Illiteracy, unemployment, lack of awareness about health problems. I think when women manage to survive all that, only then it comes to employment. But in urban areas, yes, employment is an issue with the people with disability, with women with disability, and in addition to that, being recognized by society as an independent entity. These are 2 major problems I feel in India.
जी, इससे पहले कि हम आज के शो को क्लोज करें, I want Naseem ma'am kindly tell our listeners how to get associated with Starfish.
Sure, Danish sir. If you're interested in becoming a member or learning more about Project Starfish, a couple of things, you can go to our website, which is pstarfish.org, and go through our link there that says for job seekers. There is a whole bunch of videos up there with audio as well that you can listen to. That will kind of give you a very good idea, inside, outside of Project Starfish, who we are, what we do, where we're situated, and what we don't do. As well as if you would like to send us a mail, you can send us a mail at hr@pstarfish.org, or if you are capable of calling us for more of an interactive conversation, then you can at 781-262-0520. We'd be more than glad to hear from you. Thank you so much, sir.
जी लिसनर्स, आज के प्रोग्राम में हमने तमाम इश्यूज को उठाया और जानना चाहे, कंपैरेटिव स्टडी करनी चाहिए कि क्या इश्यूज हैं फॉरेन में और इंडिया में, और जो हमने समझा एम्प्लॉयमेंट इशू काफ़ी बड़ा है, चाहे बात कनाडा की, ऑस्ट्रेलिया या मलेशिया की। बहरहाल सिचुएशन इंडिया में एम्प्लॉयमेंट को लेकर भी यूं की तूं है, और तमाम इश्यूज जहाँ एक्सेसिबिलिटी की बात आती है तो कनाडा, ऑस्ट्रेलिया और मलेशिया हम देखते हैं कि मच मच बेटर हैं। बहरहाल इस शो का मकसद आपको वर्ल्ड में क्या हो रहा है, डिसेबिलिटीज इशू पर क्या डेवलपमेंट हो रही है और लोग कितने अवेयर है, उसको आपको बताना था। और मेरे साथ जुड़ने के लिए नसरीन मैम, अलीना मैम, अमेंडा मैम एंड उपासना मैम, आई थैंक यू सो मच फॉर बीइंग विद मी एंड आई होप you enjoyed this show. And
Well, I thank you for this opportunity, Danish sir. I really appreciate it, getting our views out. Hopefully this will help some of your listeners understand some of our challenges and some of our gains as well on this side of in Canada at least. Thank you for this opportunity.
जी बिल्कुल, थैंक यू सो मच टू ऑल ऑफ यू एंड लिस्टनर्स. यू कैन फाइंड दिस शो ऑन यूट्यूब as well. Just search Radio Udan Badalta Daur, problem faced by females across the world. Bye bye, take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
या दोस्तों नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल. मैं दानिश महाजन एक बार फिर से प्रोग्राम लेकर हाजिर हूं, बदलता दौर. और आज का जो बदलता दौर है ये बहुत ही खास है और आज एक क्रिटिकल और इम्पोर्टेंट इशू पर एज यूजुअल आई यूज्ड टू टॉक एंड आई विल टॉक विद माय पैनल. और आज का जो पैनल है वो भी बहुत वर्दी पैनल है एंड विल डिस्कस अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स व्हिच यू आर लुकिंग फॉर और हमें कवर करना चाहिए. यू ऑलवेज हैड सजेशंस विद रिगार्ड टू दिस शो एंड आज हमारे साथ जो पैनल है वो ओवरसीज पैनल है और एक खास प्रोजेक्ट को ये लोग रन कर रहे हैं एंड विल फिगर आउट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स आर बीइंग फेस्ड बाय दिस पीपल एंड पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटी अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड. तो आज हम इनसे बात करेंगे और आपके जो क्वेश्चंस मेरे पास हैं, जो क्वेरीज मेरे पास हैं, एंड आई विल आल्सो पॉइंट आउट दोज क्वेरीज एंड विल ट्राई टू गेट द फीडबैक फ्रॉम आवर पैनलिस्ट. So let me introduce the panel today. So people are joining me from the Starfish project, and you might be aware with the 60-minute impact. That project is also run under the Starfish project. So joining me, Upasna ma'am from Indore. She is Chief Inspirational Officer of Starfish project. Upasna ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish. Thank you.
Joining me, CEO of Starfish project and a very talented female from Canada, Miss Nasreen. Nasreen ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish sir.
And joining me, Alina ma'am from Malaysia. She is leading Starfish project in Malaysia. Alina ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish.
And Amanda ma'am is joining me from Australia. She is a John Maxwell trainer and coach in Starfish project. Amanda ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danish.
So we'll discuss problems and challenges faced by the visually impaired females or the disabled females, and feel free to keep your viewpoint. If I skip any question you think it is important and we should express our views over that question. So let us start with Nasreen ma'am. Nasreen ma'am, in Canada, what do you find, what is the condition of the visually impaired females with regard to accessibility?
Yes, Danish sir. Here in Canada, females with accessibility, the unemployment rate in Canada is rather high in the disabled community, and then being a female, it's a little bit higher because females tend to get demotivated and kind of stay out of the work sector, and then some of them do not know what some of their accessibility rights are here until they're either put in a situation where they have to learn right away how to adapt, or sometimes if they're on the job, if they get a job, sometimes it's creating awareness or getting small gains before they actually make leaps and bounds. So for women here, it is a bit difficult. There is a high range of unemployment here in the disabled community for women, and like I said, women tend to get a little discouraged. They seem to just, sort of stay indoors and say, what's the point, or raise kids. That's another challenging viewpoint. Danish, sir.
Okay, so opening comments from Alina, ma'am. What is your take on it?
Well, here in Malaysia, yes, I agree with Nasreen. It's more